So the next couple units are going to be a little bit weird. Basically, we're covering the same time period over both. However, in this first one, we're looking more at domestic things as opposed to foreign policy. So, because it's weird, let's make this video a little weird. So welcome to the building. Welcome back to the building. For some of you, it may be a minute before you actually come back here. But anyway, let's dive in. So the first thing that we need to emphasize for this unit is a term. And this term is the Gilded Age. It's kind of the name that describes this period of time. So the key to keep in mind is gilded is basically when you cover something in a coat of gold. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing is gold. It just means there's gold on the outside. And so the key we want to focus on through this whole unit is going to be how you can have something not good happening, but put that sheen of gold over the top and it look better. And that kind of is a great description of this time period. If you look from the outside in, you go, wow, things look great. America's doing wonderful. But maybe not actually what's happening at the core. In looking at American national identity, the thing that we're going to notice or want to focus on the most is immigration. What's happening with immigration? And overwhelmingly, we're seeing tons of people come to America. But the unique part about this, as opposed to the others that we've seen throughout history, is this is going to be people who aren't ethnically like what is already here in America. So overwhelmingly, we're seeing people come from places like Eastern Europe. These people are not culturally like most of the immigrants who had come to America before, which was Western Europeans. So they speak different languages, they have different customs, and they are looked down upon by people with Western heritage backgrounds. They're mostly going to cities, and in these cities, they are going to create ethnic hubs, places like Little Italy, where they can kind of group up together and have a place that has their custom, their language, their culture, and a place that might keep them safe. And you'll notice how there will be political machines and political bosses who are going to leverage these immigrant votes into getting support for themselves politically. And so we will see a lot of corruption around this time. For politics and power, it's really going to be broken down into kind of three main things. One is political corruption. Two is going to be the populists. And then three are going to be progressive. So first, political corruption. You're going to see political machines, political bosses, all sorts of an emphasis on getting political power and then leveraging it to make more money for yourself or your supporters. When it comes to attempts by both the populists and the progressives, what they're trying to do is fix America. We're going to talk about both ethnic, immigration, economic problems that are happening that make people in America feel that things need to be fixed, but you have kind of two different approaches to it. Populists are going to be built upon the idea of we want to make kind of a radical change, and it's going to be supported significantly by people in more rural areas and farmers. And the progressives are actually going to be the ones who kind of get things accomplished, that the things that the populists couldn't actually get passed and accomplished. But you're seeing attempts to make things more democratic. You're seeing attempts to cut down on that corruption, attempts to help people economically who aren't as well off. And we will see a push for laissez-faire, which is basically a hands-off style of political governance, specifically around businesses. That's where the government doesn't want to put restrictions or regulations on businesses. That's something that we're going to talk a lot more about as we get more and more modern with things, but that's going to kind of start around this time period. One of the main things for this unit is work exchange and technology. It's looking at that economic approach. The main thing to look at through this is basically going to be income inequality. I will plug, if you watch the Patriot Act on Netflix, there was an episode kind of talking about, modern America and comparing it back to this Gilded Age dynamic. And what we're seeing is there being a significant gap between what most people are making and what the top kind of group is making. And you will see this happening during the Gilded Age. And for our purposes, we're going to look at it specifically when it comes to labor and when it comes to the owners. So for the owners, there's going to be a dialogue, a conversation around, are they captains of industry, people who are making everything better? Like they're the ones creating these jobs. Think about modern times looking at like the Elon Musks of the world or the Steve Jobs of the world. Look at what they've done in building these big companies. Or are they actually robber barons? Are they people who are preying upon labor and making money off of really the backs of people who are making nothing? And then you look at it from a labor perspective. They're going to be a lot of opportunities for immigrants coming over who can seize this opportunity to make money. Now, they don't get paid very well. They work in horrific working conditions. But because there are so many immigrants, that allows the owners to have more options in replacing workers, which means they can drive those prices down, the wages down, and they can make the working conditions terrible. What are you going to do? If you don't like it, leave. I'll find someone else who's willing to work at that price for that amount. So there will be attempts at unionizing, grouping these labor forces together and having them speak collectively and collectively bargain. And they do that with mixed success. And you will see the creation for the first time of what we would think of as like middle management. You're seeing the formation of something like the middle class. We'll see a divide between white collar workers and blue collar workers, and there being more of an ownership or a connection between the middle class and the upper class, those owners and the managers, versus labor. And a lot of what this unit looks at is that dynamic and how that all plays out. For culture and society, we really are looking at kind of two groups, the haves and the have-nots. So what are people doing who have access to more money, more leisure time maybe for the middle class? What are we seeing happen to people who don't have things? How these have-nots, how are they fighting or pushing to try and get more things for themselves or better working conditions or whatever? And so it really is this clash. Where is America going to go? I don't want to spoil too much. So we will see some attempts at democratization. We will see some changes, but there are some pretty significant things that don't change on the business side. There's going to be a growing movement around social Darwinism. The idea that wherever your lot is in life, that was because of you. Survival of the fittest. If you were stronger, you'd be more successful. You'd be that owner. The owner, the one who created that company, they are better off, and they should be better off because they're better than you, because otherwise you could have done it. Or pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Start by working as a janitor in that building and then grow up and work up through the ladder and become the owner of that company, right? And we'll talk about the realities behind this, but that is a push. And you will see social reformers, journalists, people called muckrakers, who are going out and trying to write pieces and show the public these problems that are going on. When it comes to migration, settlement, again, a lot of that immigrant stuff we talked about, American identity, but I will add, look for xenophobia, look for ethnocentrism holding on and being more of a significant factor during this time, because you're seeing people come in who are different than most of those people already in America. So you got those ethnic hubs, and then you have a lot of attempts by the establishment of America, the people who really are coming from Western European areas who have already settled, being like, no, you're not supposed to be able to come in and take my things from me because you're different than me. We are going to leverage our geography and our environment to our benefits to help us with railroads, coal, steel production, oil, all sorts of things to make a very strong and significant economic foothold in America. This is where we're going to start to see America start to take off and start leading the world in economic capacity. Not quite there yet, but this is where we're seeing that start to happen. Another thing to pay attention to is going to be when it comes to rural areas and farming. There are going to be tremendous problems around agriculture, and it's going to lead to a lot of pushes by farmers for broader acceptance, better wages, pricing, all sorts of different things. And so watch them and their discontent kind of grow over time in these rural areas. And really a divide between the urban and the rural that we still talk about to this day, really showing itself during this unit. Technically, America and the World is next unit, so we won't really deal with that right now.